Hello, everybody.
Yay.
Welcome to the Planet Workspace webinar. This is a webinar where we have 4 currently Google developer experts just talking about AppSheet, talking about Google Workspace. We're going to go ahead and start off with the icebreaker real quick. We want to ask you guys and our crew right here, what is one feature that you would add to AppSheet? Whoever wants to go first. Feel free to answer this also in the chat.
I can shoot.
All right.
I'm also going to paste a link in our chat if somebody wants to relay that to our viewers. But this is a request that I've made over the AppSheet community, and it's fairly simple, but the request is to make an additional action type that allows you to perform a row level action as an action on a set of rows in which you specify the row that you want to trigger the action from. So this would be not a row level action, which would allow you to place a primary, or I guess a display overlay or a primary view action on a list view that will just affect one row. And you can kind of arbitrarily determine what that would be. So I'll just give one example as to what you could do with that. Oftentimes, I find myself in positions where I want to export a custom CSV off of a list view. And the default CSV export is not really sufficient. I would like to do more or even trigger a CSV export of multiple tables with one button. Well, the way that it's set up right now, you don't really have that ability, or where you would have to place that button is not going to be in an intuitive location. So it is going to be challenging for the user base to map it correctly to the operation that's taking place.
I like that.
Let's go.
That's pretty good. Pretty good one. The one that I hear most often from my clients is the ability to do format rules for the entire row. Like behind the row, it would just fill in color, or if it's a deck view, so to speak, like making those things pop.
And display names and stuff.
I mean, not even just display names, just like the entire background of that row.
Highlight the row. Put a little.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's such a simple thing to do. And I feel like there's a lot of use cases for it.
Super cool. There's a lot of like data analytics platforms that have kind of like a heat map function, and you could kind of replicate that.
Yeah, and on the native code part, the individual inputs are likely inside of the HTML div on browser and just different groups within its backend code. And so it probably wouldn't be super hard to change those colors. That's pretty cool. I think it'd be cool to also be able to have dynamic colors in format rules instead of having to do like 10 different format rules.
That would be really
Very
nice.
sweet.
Yeah. I almost always, the ones I'm doing most frequently are like red, yellow, green,
Right.
And so I'm doing 3 format rules every time. Be nice to do one and just have dynamic conditions. Be cool.
Totally agree. Ben, do you have one?
Yeah, I really want unit tests. I want to be able to say, test this with putting this test data, and then that way I can just run those tests every time I make changes, so that I stop accidentally breaking something.
Amen to that, brother.
When I'm
That's
doing
a great
something
one.
another thing.
Yeah, Landan and I are on a project, and one of our colleagues, Bobby, he has like this condition in a lot of the forms where it's like, if username equals Bobby blah blah blah, then autofill with this text. That way he doesn't have to do all the text
faster.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
clever.
like, geez, that's genius. Yeah.
Oh man.
Always have good valid test data, even though you're trying to run through some forms. For me, I think for me, just global variables. I think at the end of the day, just working on other platforms, working on code. It's just like every time I'm back on that, it's just like, man, I wish I had this within AppSheet. Especially global variables that you didn't have to resync after you changed them. So
it's so easy to declare variables in other frameworks. challenging an AppSheet.
Yeah, or set states, or just different names for it.
Yeah, states
that would all suffice well.
Rodrigo in the chat said more in Portuguese.
Hey, we're
do some stuff in Brazil.
None of us know Portuguese. Ben over here is learning Japanese, and so maybe we'll have AppSheet training Japanese soon, since we have 2 guys in our team learning Japanese. But hey, maybe we want to talk to people about translating our content into other languages. That would be sick. I know, like, guys like Mr. Beast have like their same videos in 60 different languages, just so it has bigger reach. I think that would be awesome. I think that is something that Google would love us to do, just to have good content for AppSheet globally. But yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and continue with the webinar. It's good to see you guys here. We have someone from Brazil with Rodrigo. If there's anybody else in the chat and any cool places, we'd love to hear. Me and Clark are over in Fort Worth, Texas, and Landon and Ben are in College Station, Texas, home of Texas A&M Aggies.
So I don't understand why you didn't say anything about the Cowboys.
They suck, I think.
Because I'm a Texas fan.
Cowgirls?
Let's go ahead and get started. This is a Google Developer Expert webinar. And so what you see around here, the acronym GDE, and what that is that we've applied and been approved by Google that we are certified experts within the platform. And not only are we experts, but we also have a strong social presence of advocating or educating people in a specific Google product. All 4 of us today are AppSheet Google development experts, which means that we are experts in AppSheet, and we are doing this type of content right here. We're advocating and we're growing the sphere that AppSheet touches. And so my name is Camron. I'm an AppSheet Google development expert. I work at QREW Technologies, and I've been here around 6 years by now. Next up, we have Landan. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Landan Quartemont. I have been working with AppSheet for almost 5.5 years now, and have been working with QREW just that long. Kind of specialize in my niche has, I guess, somehow become databases over the past couple of years. So it's kind of a focus of mine.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, my name's Ben. I'm also AppSheet GDE. I'm a director of DevOps here at QREW, trying to help us learn, figure out best processes.
Yeah, and I'm Clark. I've been with QREW for about 4 years, and I like to party.
Clark, I know for a fact you don't party.
Rod parties.
I'm part of the team. Happy to be here. So glad to be on a webinar. It's been a long time since I've gotten to do one of these. So excited to see you all here.
Yep. And we also have our boy Austin Skidmore, which if you're fans of the channel, you know this guy through and through. He's our admin on the back end. I'm sure he'll say hi in the chat right now, but we're super thankful for him controlling slides and him making sure this goes smoothly with all of his experience within this platform. As you can see, most of us, or all of us, are employees at QREW Technologies. This is going to be a weekly or bi-weekly webinar, and it will always consist of Google developer experts, most of which will be employees of QREW, since we have 6 of the 7 North America AppSheet GDEs, which is awesome, and we're proud to say that. But we also named this podcast the Planet Workspace webinar. And so we want to have guest GDEs from other Google products from the workspace and have them on and see how the dichotomy changes whenever we have non-AppSheet people talking about what's going on. Like we are experts and we have tons of knowledge in what's going on in AppSheet, but it will be awesome whenever we have people from other spheres coming in, colliding with what AppSheet can do as well. So like I said, we're part of QREW Technologies. We offer development services, we offer consulting services, and training services. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but if you're interested, just say in the chat, I'm interested, and we'll have Austin Skidmore reach out to you. All right. First, we have Clark James with an AI translator that he built using Vertex AI to create a chat app.
Yeah,
Take it away.
You guys have got to check this out. I mean, we went to Camron and I both went to a conference last week talking about Vertex AI. And let me tell you, it is mind-blowing how quickly you can build this resource through Workspace. It's pretty neat. So I am going to just take you into kind of something that I've just kind of built really quick, and then maybe we can actually build out some things. But
Wait, how'd you get here?
just to show this off, I'm sorry? This is in the Google Cloud Console.
Well, let's go.
So I'll explain some things that you have to do in order to get this enabled. I've got it on a couple slides after this. But I do want to just kind of show you my playbook here and show off. I was playing around with this. I was trying to make a chess bot to teach me how to beat Landan in chess. And unfortunately, it told me, you will never beat Landan. You are bad at chess. So you went.
Turns out Landan.ai is a better AI.
But I want to show you this little chess bot or this translator, excuse me. Let's see. I need something translated into Spanish. And you'll see this bot is just quick on its feet. It doesn't do any mean words. I can't call Landan mean right now, but I can say, Landan, you are the coolest guy. And you see, it just translates it super quick and easy. I mean,
that's crazy.
Great.
What APIs are you connecting to? What endpoints? What deep code are you having to do all this stuff?
Yeah, nothing. I'm not doing anything. Like I said, there's two things you need to enable in Workspace in order to get this feature. But as you can see on this left side of the page, I've got, this is basically the sample instructions. I didn't change this at all, except when I was trying to play with my chess bot. And it doesn't matter. And then I put this is a wrong one. There it is. Goal, help users translate English into Spanish, Japanese, or French. I can just type this in. I need something translated into Japanese. And it just switches, just like that. Ben, you are less cool than Landan. Which, of course, we all know this as truth. But
Mark, you need to read that.
Actually, Ben, could you read this? Ben's been learning Japanese for the last year.
It's hard for me to see it. Yeah, it says Ben. Those are the first two. Ben, Ana, Tawaran, Dan, Yori, Karu, de wa arimasen.
That's pretty good. Now, I will say it's you could have made it a little bit easier. It does say, Ben, you are less cool than Landan. You could have said that, and I would have also accepted that answer. Yeah, unfortunate for you. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this is all I did. I just typed in this goal, and this works.
Can you add Portuguese to that?
Yes. Honestly, I can't. I can just change this. Is that you spelled Portuguese?
I think that's right.
Suggestion.
How about that suggestion that Google gives us? Perfect. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to save this. I'm going to reset
the original AI, the OG AI autocorrects. Let's go.
Thanks.
Now we got Portuguese content. Well, you gotta make a message to Rodrigo
Yeah.
Oh,
in
you're so right.
Portuguese. Rodrigo, I'm expecting you to say yes or no. That's good Portuguese.
Okay. Boom.
Oh,
Portuguese.
nice.
Just like that. Super quick, super simple, super easy.
It's cool
there's
how it
so much you can
recognized
do with this tool.
It's cool how it recognized a non-translatable word like crew, where it's like a trademarked word, a company business,
Cool.
and it kept that instead of it trying to like translate it to CREW in Portuguese.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's
sweet.
nice.
So what are the two things you gotta activate in Workspace to get this going?
Oh, Rodrigo said very good. Let's go.
Hey.
Very good. Thank you, Robert. We appreciate that. Again, I didn't do anything to make this work except enable some APIs in Workspace. But I mean, that's it. What was your question, Ben?
Which two did you activate? What would you have to
Yeah, so the
activate?
two that I had to activate, I wrote them down because I didn't want to remember. There's one called Dialog Flow API service, and then there's one that's called Vertex AI Search and Conversation, which you'll see Vertex AI Conversation here. When you're in the console, you can just type those into the search bar. And I believe we have a slide after this that also highlights those two things. But yeah, super simple, super easy. And if you are working with it, this was an example that I tried to do with Camron. I said, Camron, you're the best. Thanks for being so cool. It translated it into Japanese. But if it's not working as intended, you could make an example and it will fix itself. So before, when I typed this out, it said, thanks for saying that to me. And it didn't understand that I wasn't talking to the bot. It thought I was calling the bot Camron. But that's super easy, super simple, like I said. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want to go back to the slide deck, nice. So here's the content that we're going to go over today. And then, like I said, here's those two APIs that we would need to enable. And then, like I said, if you're having some issues with how it's responding to the way that you're phrasing things, you can actually create some examples, and it should be able to follow those pretty well. I actually had a lot of success with that. So yeah.
Can you describe for us the difference between the goal and the instructions? You had that on your screen. If you want to share that again, I'll switch back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly, it's pretty simple. I would say the goal is like a very high level definition of what you're trying to accomplish, whereas the instructions are more specific, and you want to be as specific as you can be. And so if you can read here, it's actually listing out steps that you're wanting the bot to do. So greet the user. Hi there. How can I help you today? Etc. It's taking these steps and it's actually putting them into action for you. And you can make these instructions as robust or simple as you want them to be, which I think is super nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, great question. Great question.
And if the instructions aren't like getting at the right product, you're not using code, so you can't just like correct the code always. Do you have any is that where the examples come into play up top?
Yes. So exactly. The examples are more or less as a secondary guide when the instructions aren't enough. When the instructions aren't specific enough, the examples help to steer the AI in the right direction. And it will learn after a while, it'll learn how to do that on its own. Which is pretty nice. The other thing that's nice is the tools, which we don't have any here necessarily, but you can actually build tools such as data stores. Like I said, I was trying to build a chess data store, and I ran out of time before this. But I logged like 20,000 sample data rows for chess matches and put them in there. And ideally, it would be able to access that information and be able to analyze it for you. Again, mind-blowing stuff. But that's what Google's working on, man. They're doing some cool stuff.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
So
great
cool.
questions.
Any other questions from Ben or Landon?
Yeah, I was curious if you like what can you embed this in?
Yeah, that actually.
Like, can you access this through like a
Yeah,
workspace
go to
chat?
integrations.
Could you?
Yeah, most of the time,
Sheet?
from what I've
You
seen,
want to
for
click on
playbooks and
integrations?
such, yeah, they've got all these different integrations that you can actually link
Mostly
these
chat.
to immediately.
Sweet. This is like out of the box,
This is just straight up out of the box.
and then you might be able to also like ping your API here.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's sweet.
So whenever you
So-
create the one using Google Chat, it actually creates not only a connection to Google Chat where you can run it as a bot, where you can have a translating bot instead of Google Chat, it also creates a webhook. And so you can also access the Google Chat from webhook and put that wherever you want. And
Nice.
Dialogflow has their own messenger where you can just add that to the HTML and it shows up on the side of your website. And so that could be something where they have to authenticate using Google or they don't have to. It's pretty sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
actually
there's
so
a lot of
cool.
implications for this. It's only going to get better from here too. So
Wow.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to Landon. He has the input feature, as
Input
you
feature, formerly the input function.
formerly known as, yes.
They
Take
changed
it away,
the syntax
Landon.
recently. So anyway, we'll cover that. We'll cover what the purpose of the feature is. But I'm sure you guys have all thought as developers, man, why does it take so many clicks for my user base to edit 1 or 2 columns of data? I'm sure you may have heard complaints from user base about how many clicks it takes to get into a form and then save the form. And if you ever found yourself in that position, you're in the right place. Also, if you've ever thought, man, as a developer, it is so challenging to update either a parent record from a child record or update a record in a different table that is unrelated, you're also in the right place. So the input feature is going to help us do both of those things. Thank you. All right, excellent. So what it does, first thing it does, it's going to help us set column values for one row of data very quickly. What it's going to do is it's going to provide a quick pop-up experience upon the selection of the button, or however you trigger the pop-up. There are a couple different ways you can trigger client-side actions in AppSheet. So the easiest is going to be through displaying an action button, but you could also do it through row select or even a form save. So you're going to do one of those methods, and it's going to bring a quick pop-up where you can modify your input values and then save your changes. So super easy there. The second thing, if you want to flip the slide there.
I got a question real quick.
Yep.
So the input function actually was added after I stepped out of primary development role. So I've never used it at all. I've never used the input function. Do you have to have a column in the table it's associated with in order to use it?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not just a free input box.
And it's going to inherit the properties of that column. So if it's, you've got a drop down or an enum list or whatever that
So that
is,
means
it's
also
going to provide that column type.
Also data
And
constrained in that way as well. So you wouldn't be able to put numbers or text in a number field. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Now that is a helpful feature, but I think the second use case is actually much more powerful. And for me as a developer, it saves me so much time and I'll try to explain why. So what it's doing is it's enabling you to provide a cross-table data translation. What that means is you are essentially taking a value from one column in one table and you're putting it into a different column in a different table. And the experience there is relatively seamless. So the way that you used to have to make this happen it's and I hope you guys are following here because it's a little challenging to explain. But essentially, you'd have to provide some sort of mechanism to know which row you just updated, and then you would go into another table. You perform an action that then will do a query on maybe the most recently updated row in the table you just updated, and you have to apply that query for every column that you want to change in this other table. It was a bit of a nightmare. So what the input function or input feature allows you to do is very quickly provide a value from your current row that then will be applied to one or more rows in a different table. So in the screenshot here, you'll see what we're doing is we have a project table, and we are going to update a user variables table using the action that we're going to trigger is our input project action. Whenever we apply this, and it is using this input feature, it's going to have an additional pop-up that happens below that in a different section that says with these inputs, and you're allowed to specify a row value from your current row. Now, I wasn't planning on sharing screen, but I feel like it may be helpful to do a very brief screen share so that you can see it in action. Can I do that?
Yeah, if you present at the bottom, I'll select your screen.
Great.
While he's doing that, I just thought it was so funny when Stefan put a pop-up right over Ben's head that said that Landan was smart. I thought that was super funny. Great job, Steph.
Oh, man. All right. Well, here we go. So first things first, I would like to take you into the project table. Sorry, I think it's the user variable table where the base input action is. And I want you to see how this is constructed. So creating an action, we supply a table. The type of action is going to be to set the values of some rows or some columns in this row. And then the syntax here is a little interesting. It's going to provide an input, and you're essentially dereferencing an arbitrary variable name that you supply. So I could have named this anything. And you're going to put that in brackets. So underscore input dot some variable name in brackets.
So they've brought it more in line with the syntax they've got in the rest of this app. And rest
Exactly.
Of the
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So it kind of assimilates a dereference. In addition, you'll see whenever I do that, there's an advanced section to this action that is, a lot of you modified, and it has this whole inputs section. So you supply your variable name, which I would just name the same thing as what you put in your action. You give it a data type, which you want to be consistent with the column that you're going to be modifying. So for example, my project column, it has a base type that is a string. So I'm putting text there, and then you can supply a default value. I will say, however, I've had mixed results with this working. So if you don't get it to work, there are other ways to set column values in your current row. You may consider that. All right, so that is step one. If you want to update this from a different table, what you'll need to do is go to that different table. You're going to create an action on a set of rows. So in this case, I've created an action on my project table. It is an action on a set of rows. It's going to affect the user variables table, which is where we created this input action. The referenced row would be the row related to my email. And the action that we're going to supply is the input project action. Whenever we do this, if we've already saved our changes, after you create the initial input action, you will then get this additional section here that allows you to specify the name of the variable or the input that you're modifying and what value from the current row you want to supply in that column, the variable. So very, very cool. And I want you to see in action how this works. So what I'm going to do is I've kind of got a stepped sequence of views that you would follow to get to an end destination. And what I would like to do is ultimately put you into a dashboard that is filtered based on the project that you select here. So in this case, I'm going to select field install 2, and it's going to take me to a dashboard that would be filtered by field install to. So here is a view of our user variables table. And I apologize, I don't have any project photos. Maybe I can. I seem to have lost my data in my application. My sincerest apologies. But as you could tell, it was setting the value of this project column from the selection before. So I was triggering that action on a set of rows from the previous screen where you select your project here. So I just selected field install 1, and you can see that it has pre-filled that value. In addition,
security filter equals false.
You know what?
I'm kidding.
Really? I think that is what's happening.
This is making that as a joke.
Yeah, it's definitely what happened. I totally forgot that I was capturing that in the video. Good call, Camron.
Literally equals false. I'm just trolling you.
That's funny.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
debugging.
One use case. And then the first and foremost use case is if you select that button, you'll see a pop-up where you can modify however many columns you've included in that input action.
That's awesome.
And then you save your changes. So really cool feature. So glad that AppSheet made it. Makes my life as a developer a lot easier. Would love to hear your questions, comments, concerns.
Yeah, so I know that previously with the input function, what you and I would do the most was we would set a value inside the user table from a record in a other table. And what this would do is it would say, like, let's say it's projects, and you want that user to have a current project. We'd use the input function to do that project, but it would never bring up the input box. Is there still a way to do that, or is the input box always required now?
Yeah, I believe if you don't supply a value and you're performing an action on a set of rows, the action that you're triggering is an input action, it will still give you that pop-up.
What if you don't want the pop-up?
If you don't want the pop-up, you should supply a value. So even if that value is null, and it doesn't have to be dynamic, doesn't have to be a value from your current row, it could just be, double quotes, it should avoid the pop-up.
Nice.
Cool. That's awesome.
So in that scenario, is there any difference between using the input feature versus just having an action on a set of rows that sets a value?
If you're not doing it dynamically to add a value from your current row, I don't necessarily see the benefit of it, but it is theoretically achievable.
Fair enough.
Cool. Is there?
You could also have it conditionally logical. So under certain conditions, it may supply a value from your current row, and under other conditions, it may not.
Do you prefer the previous or the current version of input?
From a syntax standpoint, there were less things to modify with the previous syntax, but I think it's more clear what's happening the way that they have it set up now.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
The way that I typically used the old input feature was just a quick way to do it. And it wasn't like there was never default values. You could never get anything like that to work. So I think it's a nice feature, but nice.
So helpful. Yeah. We Camron and I are in a project together, and we use it for so many things, because there's oftentimes we find ourselves needing to create these sequenced views where we're needing to dynamically change things within the app logic based on a selection that a user has made on a row. And in those cases, we're having to do both the navigation action as well as essentially capture some sort of variable data that we'll then use to filter the app experience or change the app logic. And so we use it in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So this brings us to our middle of the road, where we have a game, a little competition between our boy Clark, Landon, and Ben. So right here we have AppSheet Wordle. Was able to go through a game of Wordle, which with each of the GDEs here, make sure they understand how to play. I'm going to go ahead and send them in the private chat a URL to a custom Wordle that I've made, and it is an AppSheet related word. So if I can have each of the GDEs share their screen and then switch away from this tab where you can't see it anymore. Don't start it yet, but this is going to be an ongoing ranking system throughout the year of this webinar, and we're going to keep rank. So the number 1 spot gets 5 points. Number 2 spot gets 2 points. Number 3 spot gets nothing. Okay.
Oh
gosh.
This is the GDE Olympics. All right.
I'm ready.
So is everybody's instance of StreamYard hidden?
Yeah.
Where you can't see. Okay. You guys are free to begin. I'll be showing you guys.
Oh, whoa, this is 6 letters.
It's 6 letters. You can't use your common stare.
Oh, gosh.
Slate.
All right, don't strike out here.
So we got Clark right here, already on his second word. Getting some clues in. We got Ben.
I'm so used to doing 2.
So some rules are that you are not required to use AppSheet words to find the word that you're going for. Just know that the word that you will end up ending at is an AppSheet word.
Ooh, okay.
We officially, everybody but Clark has had at least one all gray. That is a clever one right there, Clark, that you put in. Clark's got some good clues. That's impressive. So the goal is to get this in the least amount of words. However, if 2 people finish with the same amount of guesses, then it's whoever gets to that completed word first.
Dang it, I'm keep doing 5-letter words. Throwing me off, Cameron.
Yeah, the 6 letter words is
just make everything plural. Or add an R to it.
Yeah. Wow.
Or add a Y.
I don't know any AppSheet words that begin with this.
Man, this is a head scratcher.
I almost spelled out a curse word just now. Apologies to the audience.
I wasn't on your thing, by the grace of God. If none of you guys get it, then in all your guesses, we're going to have to rerun it with you guys already having the clues of what you have.
Okay.
Clark has a handful of letters that he knows are in it.
That's too few.
My goodness.
Somebody threw out the word NoCode. Going through everybody's individual Wordles, we know for a fact it starts with an S. Everybody has that clue green.
All right, I gotta get serious. If I move this to my middle screen, can you still see it?
Mm-hmm. You'll have to make sure it's sharing.
That's what I'm asking. Why not?
Okay, I got it.
And we got Clark with X amount of options. You guys keep on going. You guys don't know how many he got it in. Clark, you can silently look at their stuff now. Reminder,
Man,
guys, this is Clark's and how many
insane.
guesses he got it in.
There was supposed to be
And-
like a 3-minute timer, and I'm pretty sure I sat on that last word for, I don't know, 5 minutes just by itself.
I'm so lost.
Holy smokes. Whose board is that right there?
That is Ben Anderson.
Oh, no arc. I should have known. Oh my gosh, Cameron. Yeah, I really think the 6 letters threw me.
Yeah.
This might be. It's only 3 extra letters.
We might have to put a 5-minute
There we go.
per minute. Let's say we have about 3 minutes left.
I'm down for like 30 seconds left.
Hey,
I can
you get out of here. You get out of here.
Oh man.
I'm just combing through the AppSheet editor, and I have.
All right, Ben got it.
All right, you'll probably have to call it for me.
Yeah, and then if you got it with your next guess, you'd be tied with Ben, which he did it before you. The word is switch, as in the switch function.
Wow.
Yeah,
The
that was
W.
rough.
Typical.
Oh my
Hey.
gosh.
So you guys can come back. I was very impressed. Clark chose the word syntax, and I thought that was money. I thought that was really good.
That's really good.
But
Yeah, he
So,
got the S and
Ben-
the T in the right location. Super helpful.
Ben got it in 4 guesses, so Ben won. Clark got second.
I would like to say he did do it 20 minutes after I finished. So
I think get good.
Hey,
Oh.
I said the rules out loud. All right, now we will proceed with the original webinar and get back to where we have Ben Anderson covering DevOps in LowCode and NoCode.
Yeah, mine is less flashy than the other 3 topics we got covered today, but it's something I've been harping on to all of our developers all year, and it's kind of shaping our strategy. It's kind of the question of those. What things can we do and standardize to help reduce issues in the long run, right? So it's about processes and learning from who came before us. And I mean, we've got to start with what does DevOps mean, right? So if we look at the next slide, we see DevOps is an abbreviation of the words development and operations. And it's a methodology that's been growing since I'd say really took shape early 2000s. There was a talk at a conference in 2010 where this group at Etsy had started trying to do deployments 10 times a day, right? And so they're integrating their IT departments, the development departments, to try and optimize how frequently they can make rollouts. And so for years, I had this understanding that rapid app development just had this leg up on traditional development because we could make changes more quickly. And I read a book earlier this year that I'll reference in a couple slides that really just like opened my eyes to how there are these huge companies and organizations making like 10,000 deployments a day, right? Upwards of 10,000 deployments a day. Not all of them, but it blew my mind. And I recognized that our strength of rapid development is not quite as strong of a foothold as I thought it was. So it forced me to change my paradigm. So it made me ask some key questions that I
real quick before you move on.
Yeah.
How would you define a deployment?
Yeah, so when the deployment is this phase, and an AppSheet, it's kind of like where you would you've got your stable versioning versus live versioning. It's a little bit of a deployment where you would push these things from stable or from live to stable, right? So it's this in traditional DevOps, it's them hosting from their dev servers to their production servers, getting the code, the website, the app out into the end user's hands, right? And so in AppSheet, if you don't have stable and live versioning, right, every change is automatically deployed, right? Is deployed automatically in the client's hands, right, the end user's hands. And so it reshaped how I thought about this. And so if we go to the next slide, it forced me to ask some questions and change, made me realize like in LowCode, we can't replace a good DevOps team. And for a while, I thought that was the goal. And I've realized the goal is not necessarily to replace the traditional DevOps model. The goal is to supplement those existing groups in large companies or empower smaller companies to do similar things without the infrastructure, right? To empower, and that's this whole citizen development mindset is recognizing, okay, we don't have the infrastructure to do custom code, right? We don't have the time or the energy or the money to do this from scratch and get it customized exactly the way we want because I need business help now, because I need to get this into my client's hands now. But I don't have the money to hire a full dev team. So we can come in and support, supplement and support those. And so again, if you want to go to the next slide, some key challenges has moved from when I looking at DevOps and what they're doing, I realized that it's not a matter of I can't do that. I'm in AppSheet. It's how can I get closer to the model that's already working with DevOps, right? Because if we recognize that AppSheet is pushing to production for us automatically, we recognize that we're utilizing the AppSheet tool or whatever no-code, low-code, platform we're using to do some of this DevOps process for us. So the question is, which parts of the process is it not doing for us, right? And this ties into that feature I would like is, in traditional development, we can automate a lot of QA. And so for years when we were doing, basically single developers to individual clients, we did not have a lot of QA, and it definitely caused problems for us and for our clients, right? And so we recognize we can't just skip quality assurance, right? It's harder. It may be harder, but we can't just skip it. So the question is, how can we make that more efficient, right? I don't have access to all of AppSheet's telemetry data. So what can I do to make it easier to figure out when the app crashes so that we don't have users who have 200 unsaved syncs on their phone and don't tell us about it for a year, right? Because not all of our end users recognize that. And then even parts of the process itself of how do I get our clients to talk to their end users about the state of the app, right? So these are two of the books I've read so far that really reshape this. And so I definitely recommend everyone go and check them out. Phoenix Project is actually a novel, so it's a pretty easy read. DevOps Handbook is not a novel and is pretty dense. And so as I go into these, I'm asking the question, what can I apply? Not, oh, I can't do that. And it's really changed the way I'm approaching our DevOps process in the scope of no-code and low-code development. And so we're learning a few things. A big part is like what documentation is necessary. And, I think early on, a lot of the pushback I was getting was, hey, these kinds of overhead make it too slow to do rapid development. And so I think the key lesson we've learned is that, yes, they add time at the front end, but they save even more time on the back end, right? So if I QA appropriately, it adds 10% of time to the development of whatever that feature is. How much time does that save? How much money does that save to make sure that whatever issue I find at the beginning isn't found later on in the by a client, by an end user, right? So I think just that paradigm has been a big shift, and it's also just opened up, I think, the possibilities a little bit, as we were like, okay, well, we can take this data and put it through this other tool and get it to show up in an app and utilize it that way. And it may be a couple extra steps for us, but we can end up getting a lot of these same things. And so excited for the rest of this year, trying to figure out more of those efficiencies we can add to our process, automations we can add to our process, and how we can succeed in ways other people have to make this tool even better, right? So I think it's cool stuff.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah. Do any of you guys have any quick questions about that?
Not quick questions.
Having read
or longer questions?
Having read the same books, I will say, and also having not come from a traditional development background, right?
Yeah.
Clark, Camron, and I did not have education in technology prior to working for Crew Technologies. At least in formal education, that is.
Right.
Whereas Ben studied computer science in college, and so was more familiar with the general tech stack for creating an application. I thought it was so helpful to just get a paradigm shift of what this is actually what the technology world looks like outside of no code and low code. And these are the things that are streamlined through using a no-code platform. I don't ever have to consider, the transition from development environment to production environment. It's all automated within AppSheet, and not just AppSheet, but other no-code technologies do the same thing. And so, a good bit of what these books recommend are already accomplished through some of the technologies that we use. Nevertheless, it's still helpful to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would
like question, Ben, what's something that you've implemented at our company that's from this book? Like, what's the most beneficial thing, quickly, that's you feel like has benefited the way that we work and do things here?
Yeah. And these both pull from a lot of the Toyota model lessons, which people in our chat may or may not be familiar with, and is a topic in and of itself. But I think the idea of how do we continually improve our process is a big piece, right? So we've started off this year just and even last year with encouraging our developers to read these books, to do all sorts of other professional developments, right? And it also reprioritized some things I knew we needed to do. So I've reprioritized feedback loops in our process, right? How do I hear more quickly from our developers about our process? How do we hear more quickly back from our clients about issues they're having, right? And so the two things we've recognized as high priorities are, one, reducing how much work we have in process at one time and reducing context switching. which is switching between tasks and how much efficiency you lose when you switch between tasks, right? So we've started to address some of that, and I've reprioritized to, and this is actually something we're rolling out next week, is trying to get some more feedback loops into our system so that we can understand what parts of the process are working and aren't working and make changes accordingly. So, yeah, but I think it's a lot just changed how I've thought about things.
Let's go.
That's great.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the final development segment, which is me right here. I'll be covering Vertex and AppSheet in the superpower of whenever they combine together. This is a demonstration created by our CEO, Landan Quartemont. He is in the chat previously, but if I go ahead and screen share, we see that he's built an AppSheet app that has a list of locations that are locations in the Avengers universe. And so nowhere. This is a hero inspection app. And so they can say, oh no, something just happened in nowhere. And it was really bad. It was an 8. You can add an image. I'm going to skip that for now. Who do you guys want to see go out to this event that happened that's an 8?
Gotta be Thor. He's the only one there that actually has power. So
one for
all
Thor.
Right, let's hit save.
Steve Rogers.
Let's hit save and see what's going on over there. So it's loading right now. And what it's currently doing is it's sending all the information about that record that we just created to Vertex AI with a prompt before it, asking it for it to create a unique inspection of the planet Nowhere. And so does somebody want to go ahead and read this? It just made this by itself, Ben, if you want to read it.
Yeah, it says, upon inspection, Nowhere was determined the villain activity is an 8 out of 10. The Collector's Museum has been compromised with several artifacts stolen and others damaged. There's evidence of a struggle, and it appears that the collector himself may have been taken. Jeez. Situation is dire, and immediate action is required to prevent further damage and loss. Recommend the team be assembled to investigate the incident and apprehend those responsible.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, this doesn't really sound like Thor. That's not really how he talks. He just says, another. That's it. That's all he says.
Well, let me go ahead and show you guys how this is done, because it's not connecting to the MCU API with some long extravagant endpoint. What it's doing is it's going ahead, you're creating an inspection. And whenever you create that inspection, it goes ahead and creates a summary prompt. It goes and it says, this is an inspection that has the site location that gets concatenated into it, performed on, it has the date of the visit, whenever it's created, and then by the Avengers name that you selected, period. Inspection results are that a villain activity is X, so we chose 8, bad out of a 10. And then what it does is it goes into Vertex AI. I mean, whenever a record gets created in this inspection table, it goes into here, it runs on an ad, it triggers this app script, which all it does is sends over that summary prompt. It runs the app script, I'll show you in a second. It returns the app script, returns the summary that it spits back, and then adds it into where that loader bar is at. And so if we go ahead and look at the app script, let me go back to the slides. It looks fairly complicated. We've made this slightly more complicated than maybe it needs to be. We have a concatenation that's happening within the app script. That totally could have been done inside of AppSheet. And so we went ahead and added a fake key into this area, but the only things that you would actually have to fill out, the code that you would actually have to do, is just the parts that I highlighted in gold. All the other parts right here, all the other highlighted white text is actually available on aistudio.google.com. you can choose what language you're doing code in. AppScript, you would choose JavaScript, and it goes ahead and triggers this API using your code, and you just pass the prompt in through AppSheet. And what this prompt is doing, what we currently have, is it's taking the prompt that we did from the inspection and adding it to this base prompt. We'll see that in the concatenation of around like line 8, 10. You see those little 2 gold parts. It's concatenating the base prompt with the prompt that AppSheet created. And so before that prompt that we saw concatenated, it kind of gives a baseline explanation of what it's wanting first. It's not using some sort of code to tell it this, it's using English. And so it says, please generate a cinematic quality interpretation of the following inspection report. This event takes place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and should be framed in past tense and read as verbose case report to Agent Coulson. Your results should be more than 50 words and less than 100 words. Here's the prompt. And then you concatenate the prompt that AppSheet creates. And then that's all you need to do. And if you are like, wow, that's still too much for me to understand, Stefan, the creator of this app, is actually currently editing a video on building this from scratch. And so not only can you do a MCU inspection app, but what you've done is just connect to an AI that understands English. And from there, you don't need to do any more code. And so to turn this thing into anything else you want requires no more code. And so one thing I've wanted to do is with an AppSheet, concatenate a string of column headers, column values before a change, and then after a change. Pass in all the values before and after a change into a concatenated sentence, give it as a prompt, and ask Vertex AI to put in human speak in English what the change was made, to create a human speak change log of a full chronological history of a record and all of its changes in English. And that would require no more code than that, other than copy pasting what Stefan did right here and adding it my own English prompt. Super cool.
Wow.
You guys have any questions?
Yeah,
or
actually,
ideas
I
how
do.
to use this?
Earlier you said all you have to give it is English, but could this be done with any language, or is it only in English that this can work?
Oh yeah. There's this weird thing that happens with general AI. Not general AI. Large language machine learning. It hits this point where all of a sudden it learns a new language after you feeding it more information, and it starts understanding that this is a different language than this other language. And after it gets to that point, it starts learning all sorts of languages, not using Google Translate AI or anything, just by understanding the language, just like it understands the first language it learns. And so, yeah, that's a really cool part, is that the level that these AIs understand different languages is equivalent to how well represented they are on the internet. And so things like Spanish, if you're using the internet right now, it knows your language. It might not work in the translator thing that Clark does, but you can put Spanish, you can put Portuguese, you can put Japanese into this, and it will understand it. Super cool.
That's awesome. Do you need to manage this with AppScript, or could you do it exclusively within the AppSheet automation environment?
I'm not sure about that. I have not looked into that.
No worries. Just curious for those in the audience who may be less familiar with AppScript.
Yeah. What's cool is that if you just go to that site right here, I'll go ahead and share my screen. It takes you to this right here, and you generate an API key, and it gives you that code. it gives you that code for you to put into the app script, and then it also asks you what kind of, I haven't generated it yet, but it asks you, like, when you click this, what language you're going to be using, and from that it gives you a personal JavaScript, personal JSON, personal like Python, and it just has like a library of different options for you to choose from, where it's like the base integration.
Yeah,
super cool.
I will say with that site, they do use information you put in there to train the model, sensitive data in there, or sensitive client data, because they will use it to train their model as well. But for less sensitive things, it is really cool and can just makes it really intuitive to build some of those things out.
Yeah, at the AI Roadshow, obviously consult terms of service and everything before looking into this and before using stuff like this. They did confirm to us that if you are a paying user, if you use Vertex, it does not train on your data. Nice. And it is safe to use. And that was a roadshow for government agencies. Nice. And so obviously consult with your Google partner that you're working with your workspace, consult with the terms of service, consult with your lawyer, whatever. But even it said that if you access the consumer side Gemini as a workspace user who has Vertex paid for, it will also switch over to Vertex instead of the consumer Gemini.
Nice.
Where it does not train on your data.
That's really cool.
I'll look into that further before we use it as a company like that. But yeah. Any other questions about that before we go into the outro? We're a little bit over. All right. Well, me and Stefan will be attending Google Next in Las Vegas. And if you happen to be there, if you happen to be going there, me and Stefan will be posting on AppSheet Training Instagram. You can find us on Instagram at AppSheet Training. And go ahead and reach out to us, DM us, respond to one of our stories that we will post, and maybe we can connect. I know there's a few different areas and booths that we'll be jumping around at and visiting other Google partners and making connections. And so if you're there, we'd love to say hi, give you guys a little bit of swag that we're bringing. I think we're bringing some some swag from QREW. Also, all this is paid for by QREW. We are getting paid as employees of QREW to run this webinar, and we're super thankful for that. The way that we make this possible is that we have appsheettraining.com. We have courses that you can subscribe to, and you can have access to all those courses with a subscription. Also, if you want to sign up for consulting, where somebody like us at QREW Technologies, who is a Google development expert, Google developer expert, we can do one-on-one consulting with you. And so if you just go anywhere on appsheettraining.com and hit that pink button on the bottom right, what that does is it brings you to a link where you can schedule a call with Austin Skidmore below, and he'll connect you with one of the Google developer experts where you can do one-on-one consulting and we can help you out with your app. We're excited and we're thankful for you guys coming. Appreciate it, guys.